yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and once again, it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday. So we have a lot to talk about on today's show, as we normally do. Third show officially, so we're at that middle point in the week. Obviously, we got a game tomorrow, but we'll get into that obviously for tomorrow's show. But middle part of the week, we have a lot to discuss. But before that, just want to remind you guys to get your comments recognized, and for donations and tips, make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And once again, for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this live broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network, and that's where you can find all of the exclusive content. So, like I said, have a lot to discuss today. In the first part of the show, we will talk about the current standings around the league. So we'll go through each division, the wild card race, and I'll give my thoughts on that. In the second part of the show, the main topic of the show is the power rankings were released this week. So we'll go through them, and I'll give my thoughts on that. And then in the third part of the show, we're going to talk about, should Daniel Jones, the Giants quarterback, start on Sunday? So I'll give my thoughts on that as well. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the NFL stat leaders after Week 5. So that's pretty much what's on tap for today. So let's get right into the first topic of the show, which is talking about the current standings around the league. So it doesn't really matter what we start with, but we'll go through obviously both conferences. So we'll start in the AFC. So after this week, right now the Dolphins, they currently hold a 1-game lead over the Bills at 4-1. The Bills are 3-2, Jets 2-3, and the Patriots are 1-4. And I just had a first take on, and they were talking about who the favorites should be in this division. And one of the analysts was saying, like, you're crazy if you think any other team besides Buffalo, based off of how Buffalo played against Miami a couple of weeks ago. Now, I don't think it's really crazy if you say the Dolphins can win the division, and right now the Dolphins have the lead at the moment. Now, I think Buffalo, based on how they played against Miami a couple of weeks ago, I think this is still their division to lose. That just shows that Miami is beatable. Miami still has some flaws, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey they traded for from the Rams, so and he hasn't played at all. I think he's supposed to be back at some point late in the season. But yeah, the Dolphins, they have some issues on defense. So there's that. And also, I mean, Josh Allen, I think most people will still say he's a better quarterback than Tua. But you know what? I think the Dolphins definitely, it's going to be close. I mean, it's going to come down to that final game when they play each other at Miami. Well, Week 18. That's the final week of the regular season. Those two teams will play each other. So that could very well decide who wins the division. Right now, I would lean towards Buffalo, but it's going to be very close. It's going to be very close. And then you got the Jets, who are 2-3. They do have some light games on their schedule coming up, but right now you kind of view them as a wild card team. And the Patriots, I mean, they are. We talked about it yesterday. They're in a downward spiral right now, and it's going to continue to head in that direction unless something something happens. But right now, the Patriots, they are in last place, and they're not going anywhere this year. I think it's safe to say that. So then we go on to the AFC North, And right now you have the Steelers who are in first place at 3-2. The Ravens are tied with them, but the Steelers, of course, have the tiebreaker because they just beat them on Sunday. I think that's going to change. I don't think the Steelers are going to win the division. However, nobody's really running away with it. I mean, the Bengals, obviously, they picked up a huge win on Sunday. Right now, I look at them as the favorites to win the division. The Ravens have too many injuries right now. And obviously, if Joe Burrow continues to get healthier and healthier, heal himself up from the calf injury, then I look at the Bengals as the favorites. And obviously, when Jamar Chase has almost 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, I mean, they're starting to click. So I look at them as the favorites. The Browns, Deshaun Watson still doesn't look right, and who knows if he's ever going to look right, really. So, and obviously Nick Chubb getting hurt, that really affects their offense and what they want to do. I mean, I still think they're going to run the ball well. Jerome Ford looks like he could still be, not obviously Nick Chubb level, but could still be a productive back. And, of course, they did bring back Kareem Hunt. So the running game is still good, and obviously you have Amari Cooper, who's gotten off to a great start as well. And their defense is very good. So, the Browns, they could still make some noise. Obviously, they continue to have Joe Burrow's number, but I don't see them winning the division. I think it's going to be either the Bengals or the Ravens. Steelers and Browns are looking more towards the wild card. But we'll see. I mean, the Steelers, if they can, get more, big plays like they did with the Pickens touchdown, and Matt Canada maybe opens up the offense, which, the Fire Canada chants are still going. I mean, they were happening at hockey games yesterday, supposedly. So, at a Penguins game. So, yeah. The Steelers' offense is what's going to hold this team back. I mean, listen, that was a huge win on Sunday, and they're definitely going to be a team that's going to hang around. But right now, I just don't look at them as the division favorites. But we'll see. The AFC South is very interesting because no one's really running away with it. It was just reported that Anthony Richardson is going to miss, I think, 4 to 8 weeks with the shoulder injury. So that's unfortunate. So Gardner Minshew is going to have to play quarterback moving forward. And you know what? He's done a nice job. And they got Jonathan Taylor back. Like I said, no one's really running away with this thing. The Jags are 3-2. I still look at them as the favorites. I think they're still the best team. The Texans, they lost a tough game to the Falcons on Sunday, but they're 2-3. They're hanging around. C.J. Stroud is playing very well. So, and they destroyed the Jags a couple weeks ago. So, they got a shot. And the Titans, I look at the Titans as like the last place team right now. Obviously they did beat the Bengals a couple weeks ago, but against the Colts, it wasn't really good. DeAndre Hopkins had a very good game, but Derrick Henry really didn't do anything in the game, and I don't really trust Ryan Tannehill at this point. I think the Titans, that's going to be the team that ultimately finishes in last place, but we'll see. But they did lose to the Colts, so that and that's a divisional game. So and especially with it being the divisions being very close, it's going to come down to those, your divisional record. If all the records are around the same, because right now, one game separates all these teams. You got 2 teams that are 3-2 and 2 teams that are 2-3. So, yeah. And then you go over to the AFC West, and right now it's the Chiefs leading the way at 4-1. You got the Chargers who are 2-2. They're going to be coming back from their bye. Going to be playing Dallas on Monday. The Raiders are 2-3, and the Broncos are 1-4. And obviously the Chiefs and the Broncos are playing each other tomorrow night, which we will talk about tomorrow, obviously. So that's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, this is the Chiefs' division to win. Chargers, I look at them as a wild card team. Raiders and Broncos, I think they're going to be on the outside looking in. But we'll see. Maybe the Broncos shock the world tomorrow. Probably not. But we'll get into that tomorrow. So now let's go over to the NFC. Right now you got the Eagles leading the way in the East at 5-0. Cowboys 3-2. Washington 2-3. Giants 1-4. I think the Eagles are going to win the division. I just think they're the best team, of course. The defense, I'm a little worried about them. The back end, They've been giving up a lot of points. Washington, they got into a shootout with them. I'm a little worried about the defense, but offense looks good. They're running the ball well with DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell, and of course Jalen Hurts is playing really well too. A.J. Brown's getting more involved in the offense, so that I don't want to say meltdown, but that little argument on the sideline against Tampa a couple weeks ago. Since then, A.J. Brown's been insane. So they're getting him the ball. But, yeah, I look at them as the best team. Dallas, I mean, they probably get in as a wild card still, but we'll see. And then I don't really expect the Giants. Well, the Giants definitely not. We'll talk about them later in the show. Washington, I mean, listen, they're 2-3. Sam Howell, he's shown flashes. I mean, the other day he had a rough start to the game against the Bears, but, I mean, he almost passed for 400 yards. He's looked okay. He's looked okay for the Commanders, so we'll see what happens there. We can move on to the NFC North. Lions, I mean, right now they're the favorites. I mean, they're going to win the division. The Vikings and the Bears, I don't expect them to catch up to them. And the Packers, right now, they're the other night definitely makes me concerned with them moving forward. And as my dog starts barking. So, yeah, Packers are 2-3. And they're going into the bye week. And then after that, they come out and play Denver. But, yeah, the Lions right now are the team to beat in that division. Then we move on to the NFC South. The Bucs lead the way at 3-1. I mean, I think it's going to be between them and the Saints for the division. The Falcons, they had a good game on Sunday, of course, beating the Texans. But Desmond Ridder, I don't really trust. The Falcons are good when they're playing with a lead. But, and I think if they had to throw the ball more than running it, then, that's going to be a problem. But, what the Falcons actually are, they're a good home team. 3-0 at home, 0-2 on the road. So that kind of tells you, again, it's only 5 games, but still. But I look at the Bucs and the Saints as the two teams that are going to be battling out for the division. And already the Bucs have a leg up on them when they won against them in New Orleans a couple weeks ago. So, and Panthers are 0-5. They're not going to go anywhere this year. Then we go to the NFC West. I mean, it's the 49ers division. I mean, the Seahawks and the Rams, they could definitely be wild cards. They're in that wild card conversation. I mean, the Seahawks are 3-1. They're playing well offensively, and of course, I mean, they had the 11 sacks against the Giants. They're going to be playing the Bengals, so that's a big game. It's going to be a good game. And then the Rams, they play the Cardinals this week, so they can maybe get themselves back to 500. Cardinals are 1-4, and now they're without James Conner, so that's going to be their offense is going to struggle even more now. And you saw that a little bit in the Bengals game when they played them on Sunday. So, so that's when it comes to division, and then we'll just run through the wild card standings really quickly. So you got the Colts, the Ravens, and the Bills. They have the 3 spots in the AFC right now. Browns and Chargers, they're a half game back. Then a lot of teams are 1 game back. Texans, Titans, Jets, Raiders, Bengals, they're all 1 game back. And, of course, you got the Broncos and the Patriots, who are both 1-4. But doesn't look like Patriots I don't think are going anywhere. Denver, yeah, they're definitely not going anywhere. So then we look at the NFC. The Seahawks, Falcons, and Cowboys, they have the 3 wild card spots. Saints are tied at 3-2 with the Falcons and the Cowboys, but they got the tiebreakers over them. And then you got the Packers, the Rams, the Commanders at 2-3, and then the rest of the teams are either 1-4 or 0-5. So, I could see the Rams sneaking in, especially with Cooper Kupp back, and as long as they could keep Matthew Stafford healthy because he's still dealing with injuries. The Saints, I could see them, getting in as a wild card team too, or winning the division, of course. Packers, what I saw on Monday was not good. So, but yeah, that's it when it comes to the standings. So with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we are going to discuss the power rankings that were released from this week. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to discuss the power rankings that were released for this week. I'm looking at the NFL.com, the NFL mobile app. I usually go based off of that. So we'll start from the bottom and work our way up, and I'll say if I disagree or agree with maybe some of these rankings here. So at 32, they got the Carolina Panthers, and yeah, I got no problems with that. I mean, the Panthers are 0-5. C.J. Stroud did throw 3 touchdowns the other day against the Lions, but it was a blowout. Yeah, I mean, he is struggling. The defense doesn't really look as good. I mean, the defense was good, the last couple of years. This year, it looks like they've taken a step back. But, yeah, C.J. Stroud is am I saying C.J. Stroud? Bryce Young, sorry. I don't know why I keep getting them confused, but Bryce Young, sorry, he's been struggling. But he threw 3 touchdowns, again, in a blowout loss there. I know, I'm like, C.J. Stroud, wait, why am I? Yeah, but, yeah, so they're at 32. I got no complaints there. The Giants are at 31. I mean, listen, I think the Giants could beat the Panthers, but, again, is that really saying anything? We'll get into them in the next segment, of course, but yeah, they have by far the worst offensive line. Daniel Jones has not been playing well because of that, and of course he's dealing with the neck injury. I mean, they're not getting the ball to any of their playmakers. Their defense, I mean, they got young, inexperienced corners, guarding Tyreek Hill. It's a mess right now. It just really is. The run defense still isn't good. I mean, I don't get it. It really just boggles my mind with how much of a step back the Giants have taken this year. They're just not competitive in any games. I mean, I guess maybe on Sunday they kind of were, but again, they still lost by 15, and they got 3 turnovers, and still lost. So no complaints there. The Bears are at 30. Honestly, I would put them ahead of the Patriots, who are at 29. I mean, listen, the Bears, the last 2 weeks offensively, they've looked good. The Patriots offensively the last 2 weeks have looked horrible. They have a combined score of 3 points in the last 2 weeks. So I think the Bears should be ahead of the Patriots. I mean, I guess because the Broncos beat the Bears, that's why they're at 28. But yeah, I mean, both teams, I mean, the defense for the Broncos that defense is horrible. Cardinals, yeah, I mean, I guess you put them at 27 over these other teams because they at least have been competitive in pretty much all their games. So, but I think now, especially with the injury to James Conner, the offense is going to be it's going to be a struggle. It really is. Then you got Washington at 26. The Vikings are at 25. I mean, yeah, that's I'm fine with that. I mean, the Vikings, they're 1-4 and they're all 1-score games. So I mean, they definitely should have won at least 1 or 2 of these other games, but that hasn't happened. I think they should have beat Tampa in week 1. I mean, but they lost that game. So, yeah, but they're at 25. And now, I mean, they're going to be going down even further with now Justin Jefferson being hurt. Raiders are at 24. They actually jumped up 5 spots after defeating the Packers. Max Crosby obviously had a really good game. Garoppolo was okay. Jacoby Myers had a good game. He's been becoming a real weapon for them. But that's because, you got Garoppolo throwing to him, and you got Josh McDaniels, all, former Patriots. So, but yeah, I mean, they jumped up 5 spots. Titans went down 7. They're at 23. And yeah, I expect them to continue to drop. I don't look at them as a team that's really going to make any noise this year. DeAndre Hopkins had a good game, so I guess that's good. But Ryan Tannehill, I mean, the first couple of years he was with the Titans, he was solid, but it's just it's kind of been, going down since then, and I think it's going to continue. So I mean, they still got a shot at the division. They're 2-3. We just talked about it. They're one game back. No one's running away with it, but I just don't look at them as a team that's really going to be any threat this year. You look at the Rams now. They went down 5 after losing to the Eagles. I think this team could be a wild card team. I mean, now that they got Cooper Kupp back, and Puka's been very good. Karen Williams has been running the football effectively. Stafford's been playing good. Obviously the defense, you still got Aaron Donald. Although, the Eagles were able to, do whatever they wanted to basically on Sunday. I mean, they did force some turnovers, the Rams, but I still think this team could at least be a wild card team. As long as Stafford stays healthy and Cooper Kupp stays healthy, this team could definitely maybe sneak in as a wild card. I think they have enough talent to do so. So the Texans, they're at 21. They went down 6 spots. I mean, they should have won the game on Sunday, but they let the Falcons, get into field goal range, and they lost a tough game there because they could have been 3-2 and they could have been tied for the division lead. So C.J. Stroud, not the quarterback for the Texans, not for the Panthers. I don't know why because I've done that before too. Even like before doing the show, it's just like I keep for some reason mixing the two up. But yeah, they're at 21. The Steelers are at 20. Yeah, I mean, they got a big win against the Ravens. I mean, really what's going to hold this team back is the offense. They really got to get this offense going. But I don't think that's going to happen unless they fire their offensive coordinator, which it doesn't look like that's going to happen. The Jets are at 19. I mean, Breece Hall had an incredible game, and, that's that's really what the Jets are going to have to do moving forward with Zach Wilson at quarterback. They got to play good defense, and they got to run the football. Run the football. Because you know what? If Breece Hall continues to, obviously suffered that knee injury last year, the torn ACL. So you don't want to push him too much. You want to, gradually, get him to his full workload. But, I mean, he got plenty of carries and, plenty of yards on Sunday. So it looks like he's starting to, get himself back to how he was prior to the injury. But that's what they're going to have to do is run the football. I mean, they're a good running team if he's healthy. Obviously, you want to get Dalvin Cook going, but it looks like he might be cooked. And Michael Carter's come in, and he's been, okay for them. He's been doing things better than Dalvin Cook right now. But that's what the Jets are going to have to do, is run the football and play good defense. So, and, there are some favorable matchups on their schedule. So, I mean, listen, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but do they have a chance? Yeah, I guess. So, the Packers right now are above the Jets. I mean, yeah, they went down 4 spots. Jordan Love was just terrible. He had a terrible game. I just hopefully they can get things right after the bye, but what I saw on Monday just was awful. You got the Colts at 17. They jumped to 9 spots. I mean, listen, you got Jonathan Taylor back. I mean, Gardner Minshew's done a nice job as their backup. So, and you know what? In a division that's, again, no one's running away with it. I mean, the Colts have been playing well, and they had that upset victory against the Ravens. So, yeah, I mean, I think right now they're the middle of the pack. You got the Falcons. They're a spot above them. Desmond Ridder did play very well on Sunday. Falcons 3-0 at home, 0-2 on the road. I think they're a team that they play comfortably when they have a lead. When they're down, that's going to be when it's tough, because then you can't really use Bijan and Tyler Algier. Then Ritter's really got to throw the ball more. And like you saw against Jacksonville and London, they really couldn't. Once they were down, they couldn't come back. Bengals are at 15. And, yeah, I think they're going to continue to climb, because as long as if Burrow gets healthier and healthier and you keep feeding the ball to Chase, they're going to be successful. So, and they got a big game on Sunday against Seattle. Saints are at 14. I mean, listen, they played well against the Patriots. They blew them out, but their offense still is an issue. Kamara's been playing good, so that definitely has helped them. Michael Thomas has been good this year. You know, offensively, they still got to work through a few things, but listen, I think this is a playoff team. I could definitely see it, but right now, they got to work through, like I said, the struggles on offense. Chargers are at 13. Yeah, I mean, listen, this team could have a worse record than they have right now. They're 2-2. I still don't really trust them, but this team could definitely is also a wild card team. Justin Herbert is having a great year so far. Keenan Allen's been great. Austin Eckler, I think, should be back this week. He was talking about it on his podcast, so that's huge if they can get him back. But the defense is still an issue. Browns are at 12. Yeah, I mean, listen, they got a good defense. They can run the ball. Deshaun Watson still doesn't look right, but I think this team is going to be a team fighting for a playoff spot, more specifically a wild card. Bucks are at 11. I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, they're one loss against the Eagles, but other than that, Baker Mayfield, he's been playing very well this year. Mike Evans has had a good start to his season. So, I think it's gonna come down to the Bucks or the Saints for the division. And so far, the Bucks have a leg up, of course. Like I said before, winning against the Saints in New Orleans a couple weeks ago. So we get into the top 10. Ravens are at 10. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. Drops were a problem on Sunday, and Lamar did throw that terrible pick in the end zone. But I think he's been good this year. The Ravens just got to get that corrected. But they're also dealing with a lot of injuries too. So Seattle's at 9. Fine with that. Offensively, they've been solid this year. Kenneth Walker's been good. Geno, picking up where he left off last year. So, and obviously they had 11 sacks a couple weeks ago against the Giants. So, I'm fine with them being in the top 10. Cowboys, yeah, I think they could be in the top 10, even though they got absolutely destroyed by the 49ers. I look at the Cowboys as being better than, I think they're a little better than the Seahawks. So, I think they're going to be they maybe are a wild card team, but we'll see how they are moving forward. But they're at 8. Jags are at 7. I think the Jags are a little too high. They beat Buffalo, but I agree with a lot of people when they said, listen, Buffalo's coming in on a Friday. They've been there for an extra week. Let's see the Jags put together a couple more games like they did on Sunday, now back in the States. So, but you know what? At the end of the year, they should be a top 10 team because Trevor Lawrence, he's been playing well. Ridley started to get going. ETN as well. So, And then you got the Bills at 6. I mean, they went down 3 spots. I mean, that was just a hiccup for them. I think they'll be fine, even though Matt Milano's out for the year. And then the top 5 is the Lions, which I'm okay with the Lions being in the top 5. Their offense has been great so far this year. Jared Goff is playing at an MVP-type level. And then you got in the top 4, you have the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and, of course, the 49ers. I don't have any complaints with that. I don't. The 49ers are by far the best team right now. And then it's everybody else. Obviously, the Chiefs you put over the Dolphins because of Mahomes, even though Tua has been great this year. And then the Eagles, I mean, listen, them and the 49ers are the only unbeaten teams at the moment. So, yeah, you're going to put the Eagles over the other teams. So, but, yeah, I don't really have any major problems. I think the Jags are maybe a little too high right now. But other than that, I mean, I don't really have any major complaints with the power rankings. So, with that, we are going to take our second break of the show. And then when we come back, we are going to discuss, should Daniel Jones play on Sunday for the Giants? We'll get into that when we come back from our second break here on the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to discuss Daniel Jones and the Giants. They obviously have a game on Sunday night. I really wish they would have flexed out of it, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So the Giants might be in store for another primetime embarrassment. And one of the big topics, well, actually, before we get into that, again, I just want to remind you guys to donate or tip and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And then, of course, for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. So, yeah, the Giants. I really wish they flexed out of this game. I mean, this is going to be a rough game, and especially because Buffalo is coming off of that bad loss against Jacksonville. But, of course, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So, Giant fans and football fans in general are going to have to be subjected to the Giants playing on prime time once again and probably getting embarrassed again. Now, the main thing is, should they play Daniel Jones on Sunday? And for me personally, no. I really don't think he should. Now, he did go on the Kay Adams show, his weekly appearance on the Kay Adams show. I think it's like every Tuesday. And I think he said, like, he's feeling better, like, and he wants to play. And listen, of course he wants to play. But not even just like from like a player perspective, but like from a human being perspective, I worry about this man's health. I mean, this is his second neck injury. Now, it's not as bad as the one he had a couple years ago, but that's a significant thing. And now you're going up against a team with a very good pass rush, and you have the worst offensive line in football. You got sacked. Well, you technically got sacked 10 times. The other sack again in the Seattle game, Paris Campbell was sacked. So technically, Daniel Jones wasn't sacked 11 times. Because I made a TikTok about that. But technically, Daniel Jones was sacked 10 times. But I really don't think he should play, and it really is just more so like you had a neck injury, and guys just can't protect you. And now what if he gets seriously injured? Then the Giants are really screwed because you got Tyrod Taylor. And then you have a Tommy DeVito, who, he did some nice things in the preseason, but again, it's the preseason. Now, of course, maybe it's like, hey, got Brian Dable, Tyrod Taylor, Isaiah Hodgins. That's a revenge game right there for the Giants, for these guys. Previously were with the Bills. But, I mean, I just don't think Daniel Jones should play. I really just do not want to see him take a beating from the Bills on Sunday. I just don't want to see it. I don't even want to watch the game. But I know I'm going to. But for the Giants, listen, you invested money in this guy, and it looks like it was the wrong decision. Although, I mean, look at what he's got to deal with, too. But then again, I mean, you see, some of the bad turnovers that he's had. I mean, that pick six against Seattle. I mean, I don't even, like, that's just one example you could look at and say, I mean, that's not the offensive line's fault. That's on you. And now you're going up against the Bills. Bad loss after a bad loss Sunday night in Buffalo. I mean, it's gonna be a rough game. And this season right now for the Giants is going nowhere. It just isn't. I mean, it just is. It's going nowhere. They're going to be 1-5. And you still got to deal with the Eagles twice. You got to play the Cowboys one more time. You got to play the Commanders twice. Even though, like, the Giants do always find a way to beat Washington. I mean, last year they tied with them, but the second game they won. But I don't know. I don't know about this time around. Because this season is spiraling out of control for them. And listen, if you want to give Daniel Jones one more year, I would say let him sit out another week. Let him sit on the sidelines because... But then again, you look at it and you're like, well, then you're going to put Tyrod Taylor out there and he's going to take a beating. He got the wind knocked out of him in the game against the Dolphins. And he didn't play the whole game. He got put in because Jones got injured. Any human being you put back there is going to get killed. Because that offensive line just cannot protect the quarterback. And I don't know if Andrew Thomas is going to play. I don't know if Saquon Barkley is going to play. I think Barkley should be held out another week. Even though I have him in fantasy and would like to see him out there again, I don't think he should be out there either. Why are you going to put him back? His first game back is going to be against Buffalo? Now, Andrew Thomas, listen, if he could play, you got to send him out there because, the offensive line is just a disaster right now. It's a disaster. And it really just, for me as a Giant fan, it really just boggles my mind how it ever since the Super Bowl, and that year, that was like the 32nd ranked offensive line, or 30, whatever it was. And they won the Super Bowl that year. But you know what? What did they do in the postseason? They protected Eli. Ever since that Super Bowl, they have not gotten it right. Pick after pick after pick, they just can't get it right. You draft Justin Pugh, Weston Richburg, most recently, Eric Flowers, Shane Lemieux. Over and over and over again, they just draft offensive linemen and nobody other than Andrew Thomas pans out. Now, John Michael Schmitz, I want to make sure I didn't stutter when I said that. He's still a rookie, all right. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But Evan Neal, he's looked like a disaster. After he had his his comments, regarding the fan base. It's just, and he's not playing well. It's the same story, different year. And I don't know how it's going to get better. I really don't. Now, I'm not going to say we got to fire Dable and Joe Shane. I just think there still needs to be more roster construction with this team. This team is not good. There's a lack of talent on this team. And it's not going to... Listen, they were way ahead of schedule last year, but now they are behind schedule with how this year is going. How many general managers, how many head coaches are they going to go through? They're on their way to having an even worse season than they did a couple years ago. And there's been a lot of bad years. 2017 was bad. 2021 was bad. You had, 7-9 finishes, 6-10. But those years were really bad. Last year, it looked like, hey, maybe this team is ahead of schedule. But it looks like they played way over their heads. It really does. It really does. Because they are just not competitive against any of these teams. Now they're playing against teams that are like Super Bowl contenders, the 49ers, the Dolphins. And they're really not competitive. They got 3 turnovers against the Dolphins. They won the turnover battle, and they still lost by 2 scores. And they didn't score an offensive touchdown against the Dolphins. They got lucky that Tua gave them the football, and they threw an interception, and they ran it back 102 yards. And playoff contenders in general. Seattle, they, obviously one play kind of changed the whole complexion of the game because it could have been a 1-score game, but it ended up not being that. Cowboys, not competitive. Their only win is against the Cardinals, and they were getting blown out, and they came back. And the Cardinals are going to be one of the worst teams in football record-wise by the end of the year. So now you're playing the Bills. Another. Well, they're more of a Super Bowl contender than just a playoff contender. But I mean, what do you expect to do in that game? With that pass rush, forget it. I would sit Daniel Jones. I really would. I really would, because he's going to get destroyed. Any quarterback that's back there is going to get destroyed. You know what? They should just do direct snaps the whole game. And because, I mean, whoever's back there is going to get killed. And it's just crazy how we're going backwards. We're not progressing. They're not progressing. This offensive line, I mean, I really just don't understand. 3 general managers, 4 head coaches, and they still can't get that line right. They still can't. Jerry Reese to Gettleman to now Joe Shane, and it's still a disaster. I mean, it's just... I mean, I don't know what else to say. Obviously, we're going to have our pick segment on Friday. So you know where I'm leaning when it comes to this game. And it's unfortunate. I don't want to pick against the Giants. And listen, I hope the Giants somehow pull it off and they win. They prove me wrong, and maybe they go on this miraculous run. It's not happening. I don't see it. I really don't. They also just don't have the players. But again, also falls on roster construction too. Now, I'm not going to put all the blame on Joe Shane because he inherited a very bad roster. But listen, he drafted Evan Neal. What is he doing? He's been awful. He's doing nothing. So, you know, they got to figure stuff out. I saw something that said like La'el Collins, he went for a visit with the Giants, and also he's visiting with the Jets. I mean, the Jets kind of need help as well with Vera Tucker being out for the year, but I mean, at least the Jets' offensive line is, you know, competent somewhat. Giants, again, I said it yesterday, listening to the radio, you know, the host was like, they got backups playing for guys who stink. And it's like, yeah, they do. It's terrible. It really is terrible what's going on right now. Bottom line is this: Daniel Jones should not play on Sunday. He just shouldn't. Let this guy get help. Let this guy rest for 1 week. Let the neck heal up. Don't let him go out there again. And the other thing too is why do they take so long to pull some of these guys around the league? If you're getting blown out, take your guys out. Why are you doing this? I mean, it's week 1, 40-0, and he's still playing. Why? Why? Take him out. If it's 10-0 against the Bills on Sunday, I would take him out. I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, that's so let me know what you guys think about that. Should Daniel Jones play on Sunday? I mean, I think most people would say no. I think he shouldn't, but we'll see. So yeah, that's the third part of the show. So when we come back, we're going to look at the stat leaders currently, and that'll be it to conclude the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final segment of today's show, we're going to talk about the stat leaders, just go through, like who's currently leading each category. So that'll be the final part of the show, obviously. So let's get right into it. So the player leaders for some of these for the categories. So right now you currently have Tua Tagovailoa leading the way in passing yards. He has over 1,600 yards passing. You got Kirk Cousins right behind him. He's right below. He's at 1,498 passing yards, so he's about to hit 1,500. Then you got C.J. Stroud, Matthew Stafford, and Josh Allen. So that's the top five. I mean, honestly, if Tua plays the full season, he's probably going to end up being the leader in passing yards because, I mean, their passing game is just, it's legit. It's elite. It really is. And I'm happy for Tua and I hope he stays healthy because you know what? I mean, he faced a lot of criticism. Obviously, and I would probably put myself in that category as well. Because he doesn't have the greatest arm, but you know what? He's accurate. And when you got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, I mean, you could literally just do whatever. I mean, you throw slants and they could just take it to the house. But Tua's accurate, and they have so many playmakers on that offense. I mean, the running game, helps too. Obviously, they're dealing with injuries there now. But, I mean, this Dolphins offense is just amazing. And, I think right now, Tua's right now in the lead in passing yards. He plays the full season. I mean, he's probably going to end up being the leader when it's all said and done at the end of the year. Kirk Cousins, it's going to be interesting. This might be something that we discuss, whether it's this week or within the coming days, but, about Kirk Cousins' future with the Vikings because, they might look to trade him. I mean, there's some places that he could go to. The Falcons I thought of as one, although Desmond Ridder did play well on Sunday. And then, of course, you have the Jets, who could possibly be a suitor for him as well. And I don't know if Jet fans... some Jet fans I think would want that. Others maybe not so much. But we'll see. It all depends on how Zach Wilson plays. And obviously, there's talk that Aaron Rodgers, he's trying to make his way back this season. Listen, right now for me, I don't think the Jets are going to make the playoffs. But do they have a chance? Yeah. They just got to... But they got to run the football and play good defense. That's what I said earlier in the show. So... and then the other passing leaders here, you got C.J. Stroud, Matthew Stafford, and Josh Allen. C.J. Stroud's been great so far this year. He looks like the best rookie quarterback right now. Obviously it was kind of between him and Anthony Richardson, but now Anthony Richardson's going to miss some time. So, and C.J. They both looked better than Bryce Young. But C.J. Stroud, yeah, he's looked good. Matthew Stafford, now with Cooper Kupp back. The passing yards are going to continue to climb for him and Josh Allen, of course. The Bills, I used to call them the Buffalo one-dimensionals because that's all they did was throw, and that's what they're going to continue to do. James Cook has been good this year, but, what's the Bills' strength? It's throwing the football, of course, and, that's why Josh Allen is a top leader in passing yards. So now we go to passer rating. So you got Brock Purdy at 123.1. Then you got Tua, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, and Josh Allen. Yeah, it's kind of funny. So on ESPN, it was said that Russell Wilson's been playing the worst football that, Mike Greenberg said it, that he's ever seen. And is that necessarily true? No, it's not. Because Russell Wilson, he is not. Now, can he play better? Yeah. He wasn't good against the Jets on Sunday. But Russell Wilson is not the problem in Denver. He has been playing good. He's been playing good for my fantasy team as well. So I don't really have any complaints with Russ. But yeah, he's top 5 in passer rating. So that shows you he's not the main problem in Denver. Brock Purdy, he's just been unbelievable. Really has. When we start talking about the MVP conversation, he's going to be one of the people at the top when it's, talking about that. Because, I mean, you could even put Christian McCaffrey in that conversation too, because Christian McCaffrey just keeps scoring touchdowns every single game. I mean, obviously he didn't have a monster game on Sunday, but still scored. But Brock Purdy has been playing really well to start the year, and he's the way he's operating on offense with this team. I mean, he's doing it better than the quarterbacks that the 49ers have had the last couple of years. Garoppolo, Trey Lance. I mean, he is in a great situation right now. And the 49ers right now, they look like the best team in the NFL. And listen, I honestly hope they're the team that hoists the trophy up at the end of the year. I do. I think all those players deserve it, but we'll just have to see. Tua, of course, I said, he's at 2. Herbert is at 3. I mean, Herbert's been really good so far this year as well. Obviously, they've their defense has kind of let them down in some spots, but you know what? He's been doing well. I mean, Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, that was a good move, but they got to tidy some things up on defense. So we go to the rushing leaders now, and I just talked about him briefly. Christian McCaffrey leads the way at 5'10". Then you got Devon Achane, but that's going to change now that he's going to miss some time. And, I mean, a lot of these guys, like, you wouldn't expect it. Zach Moss is actually 3rd in the NFL in rushing because he ran for over 130 yards, I think, against the Titans on Sunday. Because, I mean, they're still trying to work Jonathan Taylor back. Jonathan Taylor didn't really do much on Sunday, but you got Zach Moss at 3. And then you got DeAndre Swift, who's been playing really well now that he kind of has taken over as like the lead back in Philly. Because they don't even use Rashad Penny at all. I thought he was going to have somewhat of a role on this team. He has not. DeAndre Swift is kind of taking it over. Because Kenneth Gainwell missed a game, and Swift had that big game against the Vikings. So Swift is the lead back. Then, of course, you have Gainwell. So that's a nice 1-2 punch there. So right now he's at 4. And then you got Travis Etienne at 5. He had a huge game on Sunday against the Bills. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey, I mean, if he stays healthy, probably going to end up being the lead rusher. Especially in that offense. I mean, he is like the main component of that offense. And that was such a great move by the Niners getting him. Because, listen, I think, I mean, he just takes them up another notch. I mean, multiple notches, really. Because, I mean, 2 years ago, they went into the playoffs with Elijah Mitchell as their number 1 back. And is Elijah Mitchell, Elijah Mitchell is good, but when he's healthy, but he never plays. Getting McCaffrey, I thought, was huge for this team. And, yeah, I mean, if McCaffrey stays healthy, because, he's had his injury problems the last couple of seasons. Although last year he actually was healthy. This year he's been off to a great start, and he, no injuries as of right now, knock on wood. But, yeah, I think he might end up, if he stays healthy, he's going to end up being the leading rusher by, the end of the year. So we go to receiving yards, and you got another Miami Dolphin. You got Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's possible he gets to 2,000 yards this year. He's at 651. Then you got Puka Nacua at 572. That's going to come down a little bit. He's going to kind of come back down to the pack because now Cooper Kupp is back. So, but, it's not a bad thing, though. I mean, he scored a touchdown on Sunday, his second of his NFL career. So that Rams receiving core is good. Puka's still going to get targets, of course. But I think he's definitely going to go down. Guys are going to start passing him because, now you got Cooper Kupp back, and Stafford's going to be throwing to him a lot, too. Justin Jefferson, unfortunately, he's going to be right now he's in the top 3, but yeah, he's going to be missing some time now with his hamstring injury, so he's not going to be in the top 3, but he was well on his way to having another great season. A.J. Brown and then DJ Moore. I mean, DJ Moore, he got half of his yards on Thursday, so he's in the top 5. A.J. Brown, ever since that little argument on the sidelines, I mean, he's getting the ball every single time now. So yeah, he's been doing well these last couple weeks. So the top 5 when it comes to receiving yards, I mean, that you kind of expect with some of these guys in it. It's just kind of funny, who's the top 5 in rushing this year. But yeah, and then of course Sacks leader, I mean, no surprise there is T.J. Watt. Then you got Josh Allen, the linebacker, Trey Hendrickson, Daniil Hunter, and Khalil Mack. And so Khalil Mack, I think, got all of his, because didn't he get 6 sacks in the game against the Raiders? So he got all of his sacks from that one game. So, yeah. But no surprise there with T.J. Watt at 8. I mean, the guy's just an absolute stud. He's a monster. And, that's what's going to keep the Steelers in the playoff conversation is their defense. And listen, when he doesn't play, the Steelers, have, obviously it makes sense. But it's just kind of funny how different their record. I don't know what the exact record is. I'll have to look it up. But, the record with T.J. Watt being out, and then when he came back, I mean, the Steelers went on, a second-half run. And they could have squeaked in as a 9-8 team. But it's crazy how he's he's the quarterback on defense. But when he's out, the Steelers are a completely different team. Jesse Bates, he leads. He's tied with Bland and Jacobs and Whitehead on the Jets. Jacobs on the Lions and Bland on the Cowboys. They're all tied with 3 interceptions. And Zaire Franklin, he leads the way with tackles for the Colts. They also have a team leaders category. So the Dolphins, they're just looking at passing yards. That's just the quarterbacks, of course. Rushing, so the Dolphins lead the way. They're averaging 185.8 rushing yards per game. That's crazy. That's going to go down a little bit now with Achane being out. The Eagles have 164. 49ers have 156. Ravens 146. The Browns are 143. So even with the the injuries to Nick Chubb, the Browns can still run the football. The top 5 scoring teams, you got the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Bills, the Lions, and the Eagles. Dolphins are at 36.2, 49ers 33.4, Bills 31.8, Lions 29.6, and the Eagles 28.2. And Dolphins lead the way on offense, yards per game, 513.6. Then you got the Eagles with 404.4, 49ers 402.6, Bills 390.4, and the Chargers 388.8. Listen, Kellen Moore's doing wonders with that Chargers offense. So there's no surprise there. And then the sack leaders in total, the Bills lead the way with 21. Ravens 18, Dolphins 17, Steelers 17, Chargers 16. Bills are tied with the Niners for the most interceptions. But yeah, that's pretty much it when you look at the stats. But yeah, let's go back for a second. So the Bills lead the NFL in sacks at 21. And what did I just talk about in the last segment? About the upcoming game with the Giants. So all the more reason for Daniel Jones to not play on Sunday. Just don't let him play. And they also are tied for the most interceptions by a defense in the NFL too. So it's going to be a long night for the G-Men. And with that, that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. I will be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, talking some more football. Obviously, we got a game tomorrow night, so we'll preview that. I'll figure out what we talk about in the other segments. Let me know what you guys think, if there's anything else you want me to touch upon. I'm always down to hear some ideas and suggestions for show topics, but we'll figure it out. But we're definitely, obviously, previewing the game tomorrow. So until tomorrow, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.